Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Which is peace on Yahweh's Holy Sabbath Day. Welcome to another holy convocation that Yahweh has enjoined unto us here in Stone Mountain, Georgia. When we realize that we're getting closer and closer to the redemption of the children of Israel, we realize that the setup that Babylon has given us is far from what righteousness and what holiness is. What our people are trying to do now is just maintain the status quo, but the status quo was given unto us by the adversaries of Yahweh, the very same ones who invaded the holy city, killed over 1 million of our people, and pushed the rest into slavery and to be entertained in their arenas. And as it is to this day, we have made it when we get to entertain them in their arenas. Now you get to be a famous person if you can entertain them in their arenas. But what ended up happening unto us is we have to basically give up each and every bit of who we are. We have to not stand up for anything of righteousness. This country shows you when one of the football players decided that he was going to stand up for, what was right and stand against wrong. They let you know quickly what ended up happening with that, and they will get together and make sure that they blackball you so that you're not able to maintain in their system. The same thing happens with the churches. People are not aware that the churches are in agreement with the government when they receive their 501c3 certification. That certification says that there's certain things that you cannot teach. So when we get to putting out some of these videos, there are a lot of people that want to question whether or not, if this stuff is true, why haven't I heard it before? So they want to know, my pastor has a PhD. Surely my pastor is smarter than Esaac Israel. How is it that, Esaac Israel is saying things and I've never heard my pastor say this? And what people have not realized is that their pastor has shackles on their feet, that they cannot teach these things. If they teach those things and they lose that 501c3 certification, especially we talking about a place that might have made $10 million last year. All right. And then you turn around and teach something against what the government says. At one given point, they can then turn around and say, all right, we now need the tax liability of all the money you made last year and the last couple of years. So you think about how any tax thing goes, you deal with those things year by year. Imagine if you get hit with several years of tax liability all at once. I don't know who can survive that. That automatically puts a shackle on the feet of these pastors who have entered into those agreements, and backing out of that agreement is not as easy as people think, because you've gotten all of these buildings from government grants. And if anybody knows anything about grants, there are certain things that you have to sign up. There's certain things that you got to agree to. There's certain things that you have to abide by. You have to undergo their checks and balances. And even though you're tax exempt under their 501c3 status, you still have to hand in all your financial information. So consider, you're tax exempt, but you're having to turn in papers every year. So the minute you say something that goes outside of their window, they already know how much money they come and ask you for, because you had to turn it in for the last couple of years. So they already got that. You only have to, if you don't file for 3 years, you automatically knocked off their tax exempt system. So after 3 years, you have to turn in these things. They know how much money you brought in, so they know exactly how much to demand of you if you teach these things. And what that is when you talk about what the government has passed and they said, okay, this is same-sex marriage, all the pastors have to agree to that, whether they like it or not. Now, you got the Bible that says one thing, and you have the law of the land that says something else. So people say that there's supposed to be a separation between church and state. But what the state does is engage you through voluntary contract. 501c3 is a voluntary contract that the pastors sign whether they knew what they were doing or not. But it is a voluntary contract, and once they engage you through contract, you are then stuck in that thing there. So there are certain things that we're not going to have finances for, because we're never going to sign that contract. So if people come and to deal with this word, and they want to know, man, why don't y'all have a much bigger building? Why don't y'all have a much bigger thing? We ain't never going to enter into that contract. That contract ain't never going to be signed here, because we're going to teach what's in this book. So this is even what the fight of what Donald Trump is saying, that he was going to pull back some of those restrictions so the pastors would not be forced into marrying same-sex couples. People then said, well, this is about discrimination. You know, so then they're fighting his push. But sometimes people are so divided between Democrat and Republican, we can't see the sense on the other side. So, you know, black people used to be completely Republican. Then black people changed to be completely Democratic, being on the other side. But then, so now, whatever side, this gang-like mentality makes people believe that they can't see something that makes sense on the other side. What he's doing is saying, no, you will not force these pastors into marrying same-sex couples, which the Bible actually clearly says is wrong. So, but black people feel like, okay, but I'm a Democrat, so I have to agree with whatever the Democrats say. And that's a problem, because either way it goes, we are now allowing things outside of our Elohim to dictate what's right and what's wrong. He has given us an instruction manual. This instruction manual dictates what's right and what's wrong. No group dictates that. No organization, no church body. I can't decide what's evil and what is not evil. Yahweh didn't give me that right. He didn't give me that power. This book has that power and that set standard that does not get to just change based on who's talking. But before we get started, brother, would you read the oracles and entreat the angel that stands at the door to come in and sup with us and us with him, that we may make this a holy convocation by the angel's presence?
1 Peter chapter 4, verses 7 through 11. But the end of all things is at hand. Be you therefore sober, and watch unto prayer. And above all things have fervent love among yourselves, for love shall cover the multitude of sins. Use hospitality one to another without grudging. As every man has received the gift, even so minister the same one to another as good stewards of the manifold grace of Elohim. If any man speak, let him speak as the oracles of Elohim. If any man minister, let him do it as of the ability which Elohim gives, that Elohim in all things may be glorified through Yahshua the Mashiach, to whom be praise and dominion forever and ever. Amen. Ephesians chapter 4, verses 29 through chapter 5 and verse 4. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. And grieve not the Holy Spirit of Elohim, whereby you are sealed until the day of redemption. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. And be you kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as Elohim for Yahshua's sake has forgiven you. Be you therefore followers of Elohim, as dear children, and walk in love, as the Mashiach also have loved us, and has given himself for us an offering and sacrifice to Elohim for a sweet-smelling savor. But fornication and all uncleanness or covetousness, let it not be once named among you as becomes saints. Neither filthiness, nor foolish talking, nor jesting, which are not convenient, but rather giving of thanks. Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. Keep your foot when you go to the house of Elohim, and be more ready to hear than to give the sacrifice of fools, for they consider not that they do evil. Be not rash with your mouth, and let not your heart be hasty to utter anything before Elohim. For Elohim is in heaven, and you upon earth, therefore let your words be few. Exodus chapter 23, verses 20 and 21. Behold, I send an angel before you, to keep you in the way, and to bring you into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him, and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. Revelations chapter 3, verses 20 through 22. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him, and will sup with him, and he with me. To him that overcomes will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I have also overcame, and am sat down with my Father in his throne. He that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says unto the churches.
All right, we're going to begin today's sermon in Matthew chapter 22. Matthew chapter 22, and we're going to read verses 1 through 14. Matthew chapter 22, and verses 1 through 14, and today's sermon is entitled Purification unto Holiness. Purification unto holiness. What we have to understand is people give us this real easy way of being purified unto Yahweh our Elohim, and that easy way is every man dies and he immediately goes to heaven. What we have to understand about the real process and how things are really set up is that Yahweh already gave man a paradise. Man has messed up that paradise in the things that were committed in the garden. We didn't think that we're going to automatically receive another paradise, but that is not how things are set up. That's not how Yahweh has made things to go. So we don't get to just automatically get some other paradise. We have to cleanse the paradise that we were given. The earth in itself is a beautiful creation that Yahweh made, that he saw fit to create. But man has made many inventions and have done many things so that the earth is not even operating the way that it's supposed to operate. The beauty of Yahweh's earth, we haven't seen in this generation. It has been so defiled, even the waters, the land, everything has been so defiled that we have never seen the true beauty of Yahweh. And being in cities, we never get to see the beauty of Yahweh anyway. We see nothing but buildings and fake lights. A lot of us have to go out to the country before we even realize, regular things, Then we look and wow, look how beautiful the sky is. You couldn't see that for all the smog in the city. Man has made so many things that you don't get to see how beautiful Yahweh's creation is. So this has led us to come up with these wives' fables that people are going to get some other paradise. No, you're going to take responsibility and you're going to take a part in cleaning up the paradise that you were given. And that was this earth. Matthew chapter 22, and let's start that at verse 1.
Matthew chapter 22 and verse 1. And Yahshua answered and spake unto them again by parables, and said, The kingdom of heaven is like unto a certain king, which made a marriage for his son, and sent forth his servants to call them that were bidden to the wedding, and they would not come. Again he sent forth other servants, saying, Tell them which are bidden, Behold, I have prepared my dinner, my oxen, my fatlings are killed, and all things are ready. Come on to the marriage.
Right. This is Yahweh sending his servants out to go out in all of these places and explain to these people about the word. But the people said, no, I like my life the way it is. I don't want to make any changes for the word. I like the way things are going right now. I got a couple cars. I got a flat screen TV in every room. I'm straight. Go ahead.
But they made light of it and went their ways, one to his farm, another to his merchandise. And the remnant took his servants and entreated them spitefully and slew them.
Right. The way they do that today is they call the true servants of Yahweh all kind of names. They say y'all must be in some kind of cult or something. Why y'all want to actually, do that stuff that's written in the Bible? Who would want to do that? So now they slay you on Facebook. They slay you on the media. Anytime you even read anything about Hebrew Israelites, they don't bring up any people like us. You won't see any of our congregations on here. Anybody who actually has sense teaching this word, they're going to show you them dudes that look like Africa Bambaataa in the Zulu nation. Them the ones you're going to pick up. So that's automatically meant to poison you against this word. See? So this is how they spitefully slay the servants of Yahweh. They automatically try to link them onto other people. Meanwhile, the heathen never does that to themselves. When a Christian come out and kills 20 or 30 people, they don't go to all the Christian churches and say, why one of your people killed 20 or 30 people? They have absolutely no connection and don't feel like they have to apologize. Yet let a Muslim kill 15 or 20 people, or anybody for that matter. They will then go to the mosque and ask those people to say, you need to publicly denounce what this other Muslim did. And they said, I don't know him. Why would I have to publicly denounce what he did? Do you have to publicly denounce everything that every Gentile does? Do you publicly denounce everything that every Christian does? Do you have to publicly make a stand against everything that people do who look like you or even worship in the same way that you do? So why do everybody else have to do it? This is how they slay you. And half of us don't even know we being slayed. Go ahead.
Matthew chapter 22 and verse 7. But when the king heard thereof, he was angry, and he sent forth his armies and destroyed those murderers, and burnt up their city. Then saith he to his servants, the wedding is ready, but they which were bidden were not worthy.
Now, understand something. This is the New Testament. This is the Messiah talking. Now, we have very widely listened to televangelists that tell you God is not angry. Now, the beginning of this says, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a certain king which made a marriage for his son. Okay, now we go back. Now, after they did all of these things, it says, but when the king, do understand when we start talking about Yahweh and Yahshua, that's when you start seeing King of Kings and Adonai of Adonais. Okay, when the king heard thereof, he was wroth. Wroth means angry. This is the New Testament, and he says the king is angry. Yet, you have a very rich televangelist, and he ain't the only one. All of them sitting there telling you, God ain't angry with you. This is the New Testament. It's the Messiah talking, and he says the king is angry. So why do we listen to these soothsayers, these sorcerers telling us that God ain't angry with you? You can do whatever you want, and he gonna accept you. It's the Messiah talking. And he says he's angry. Then he says, and he went to burn up that city. So don't think you got to go to Revelation to read about Yahweh's anger. The Messiah talking about it right there. But when people read this and they throwing rose petals at you, you miss the angry part. God is love. He's love. So you miss that part where, your city get burnt up. Love. You so busy looking at the rose petals falling that you forget that wrath. You forget that part. You forget that whole burning up the city part. You all in love. Right. But you don't see that smoke behind you? That's your city being burnt up. How you miss that? How you miss the Messiah talking about that? See? That's how people can jump from verse to verse. This is the damage of doing that verse by verse, that they only going to read 2 verses out of an entire chapter. This is the danger of that. Because here it is, we're in Matthew, but 99% of churchgoers never considered the part where the king is burning up the city and the Messiah is the one talking about it. But God ain't angry with you. That's the devil telling you that. Go ahead.
Verse 9. Go ye therefore into the highways, and as many as you shall find, bid to the marriage.
So you go out and you invite those people to come in and keep the Sabbath day. That the televangelist telling you, you ain't got to keep no more. God ain't even interested in the Big Ten. You can throw away the Big Ten. He ain't worried about that stuff. Just show up with your checkbook. Go ahead.
So those servants went out into the highways and gathered together all as many as they found, both bad and good. And the wedding was furnished with guests. And when the king came to see the guests, he saw there a man which had not on a wedding garment.
Right. You can't come to Yahweh any old kind of way. You can't come just how you feel like coming. And we know back in those days, we would roll right from the club and roll right to the church. Had our gyration juice still on us from the night before. Same outfit. Go ahead.
And he saith unto him, Friend, how come you in hither, not having a wedding garment? And he was speechless. Then said the king to the servants, Bind him hand and foot, and take him away, and cast him into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen.
How you miss that? But they keep telling you, God not angry with you. Here it is. This person don't have on the right clothing. See, that wedding garment is being clothed with the Spirit. And you can't have the Spirit doing any old thing how you want to do it. That's not how that works. So here, he gives a parable where the man got on the wrong clothing and he gets bound hand and foot. But they tell you that he's not angry with you and you don't have to worry about nothing. There's something seriously wrong with that doctrine. The person that's smiling in your face telling you this doctrine is trying to get you killed. You have to learn that everybody that smile at you is not your friend. And everybody that frown at you is not your enemy. Because some of them are fighting to save your life. And you think the very person that's fighting to save your life is your enemy. Because they said some things that didn't agree with your sensitive nature. Should we appeal to one another's sensitive nature, or should we try to save one another? If you see your child dying and they argue, well, don't come in here and save me. I don't feel like being saved right now. You gonna let them die, or you gonna fight to save them? So that's something that we have to consider. Let's go to Leviticus chapter 16. You find out that Yahweh deals with the same thing from one point to another. Leviticus chapter 16, and let's read verses 1 through 4.
Verse 1. And Yahweh spake unto Moshe after the death of the two sons of Aaron, when they offered before Yahweh and died.
Right. So there ain't no special treatment in this thing. See, people like to, name drop. Well, I'm Aaron's son. Yeah, well, you gonna die just like everybody else. Congratulations. What that mean? So ain't no hookups in the kingdom. Ain't no let somebody else, go in and then you come back around to the back door and let a brother in. Now that ain't gonna work. Go ahead.
And Yahweh said unto Moshe, Speak unto Aaron your brother, that he come not at all times into the holy place within the veil before the mercy seat, which is upon the ark, that he die not. For I will appear in the cloud upon the mercy seat.
So let him know not to come at all times. Look, check yourself before you come to appear before me. Don't just come with all your mess on you. Check yourself before you come in here. Don't just come in here at all times. See? Because right in here where within the veil before the mercy seat, this is the place where I commune with the children of Israel. So don't come to me any old kind of way. Go ahead.
Thus shall Aaron come into the holy place, with a young bullock for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering.
Okay. Even now, in the natural setup of things, when you watch presidents and kings go from country to country, have you noticed that they always take one another a gift? You do not go before a king empty-handed. So they have to come in the presence of Yahweh. They got to bring an offering. Go ahead.
He shall put on the holy linen coat, and he shall have the linen breeches upon his flesh, and shall be girded with a linen girdle, and with the linen mitre shall he be attired. These are holy garments.
These are holy garments. So you can't wear what you want to wear either. Folks want to come before Yahweh like they hanging out. What's up, dog? Where you going? Where you going? So, Old Testament and New Testament agree. Yahshua cast a person out of darkness because they ain't have on the right gear. Yahweh said same thing. Hey man, don't come before me in no kind of way. And for some reason, we have to remind more brothers of this than we have to do sisters. We'll wear holy attire. Brothers, we get a little lax. We think we kicking it. Right? Until Yahweh kick you. Go ahead, finish it up, bro.
Therefore shall he wash his flesh in water, and so put them on.
Yahweh said, don't even come in before me stinking, bro. Put on some decent clothes and wash yourself, man. Don't come before me stinking. Act like you going somewhere. And we find Yahweh saying the same thing in the Old Testament as Yahweh is saying in the New Testament. Yahweh and Yahshua agree. They both are one. People keep trying to tell you that it's some kind of different thing. Then we got to get to one more thing right here. The priest, it says at the bottom of verse 4, with the linen mitre shall he be attired. He better have something on his head. Last time you seen a pastor with something on his head? Y'all remember they used to all have robes. They all were covered. But when them fine Italian suits was purchased, that robe flew off because you couldn't see that fine Italian suit. But they used to have a suit on up under the robe. Then the robe just got thrown off. The choir don't even hardly wear a robe no more. Because everybody got to show their fine clothes too. Because the robe ain't just hiding the fine clothes. The robe is hiding the fine body. You know what I mean? Look at all this here. What, bro, you said? Watch this. Watch this. He'd be flexing. Watch this. Watch this. He moved his arms every time he said, watch this. Watch this. Is it dude got a muscle shirt? Now, how is it that nobody think, hey, bro, I don't think you should be wearing that muscle shirt. I don't think that's cool. Brother got a muscle shirt and vest. And then nobody think there's something wrong with that. How you think that was all right? So the robe come off, then the suit come off, now we got on muscle shirts and vests. So we working out before we come out. You know, because you know how they do in the movies. They lift weights right before the scene because, you know, you get pumped up right away. And then eventually, you know, it'll go back down. But you know, you pumped up for the first 15 minutes right after you come out the gym. You know, that's why brothers like to look at themselves right when they first come out the gym. Right. It's something real sick when you pumping up before you come before the altar. You got some serious issues. Now, why you got to wait till everything fall down before you realize, hey man, something ain't right with that? We can go in this word and find that something ain't right with that. Yahweh said there's certain clothing that we supposed to wear. We had people send us a message one time. They said, man, I like the stuff y'all saying, man, but why y'all got to dress like that? And we said, man, I like the stuff you saying, man, but why you have to dress like that? They wanted me to wear muscle shirts and vests. Yeah. Let's go to Luke chapter 2. I'm sorry, you caught me at the wrong part of life. Earlier, I would have put on a wife beater and greased myself up and slid all the way. Hey, I'm sorry. You caught me at the wrong time. That life gone. That life gone. And that's deep when people say, you know, I like the word. I just wish you put on more revealing clothing. What kind of statement is that? That deep, folks. That deep right there. Luke chapter 2. And let's read verses 1 through 7.
And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And this taxing was first made when Cyrenius was governor of Syria. And all went to be taxed, every one into his own city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth, into Judea, unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be taxed with Mary, his espoused wife, being great with child. And so it was that while they were there, the days were accomplished that she should be delivered. And she brought forth her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. Right, so we see that their taxes didn't care about anything. Woman great with child, you still better get there and pay these taxes. Jump to verse 21. And when the 8 days were accomplished for the circumcision of the child, his name was called Yeshua, which is so named of the angel before he was conceived in the womb. And when 8 days were accomplished for the circumcision of the child, his name was called Yeshua. So we have in this New Testament the very setup that was decreed in the Old. A lot of times people tell you how much they love the Messiah, but they won't do any of the things that he did. Go ahead. And when the days of her purification, according to the law of Moshe, were accomplished, they brought him to Jerusalem to present him to the Adonai. Right. So Christ went through all the days of purification according to the law of Moshe. Most people have no idea what that is. So what's laws of purification? Go ahead. As it is written in the law of the Adonai, every male that opens the womb shall be called holy to the Adonai, and to offer a sacrifice according to that which is said in the law of the Adonai, a pair of turtle doves or 2 young pigeons. All right, let's go to Acts chapter 21, because we're going to read another point of purification within this New Testament. Acts chapter 21, and let's read verses 17 through 26. Verse 17. And when we were come to Jerusalem, the brethren received us gladly. And the day following, Saul went in with us unto Jacob, and all the elders were present. And when he had saluted them, he declared particularly what things Elohim had wrought among the Gentiles by his ministry. What things Elohim had wrought among the Gentiles, as him being a Yehudi or a so-called Jew, going amongst the Euro-Gentiles or Caucasians to teach this word. So he's telling them what things Yahweh has made possible. Go ahead. And when they heard it, they glorified the Adonai, and said unto him, You see, brother, how many thousands of Yehudis there are which believe, and they are all zealous of the law. Now he's making this whole point of the difference. First, verse 19 is dealing with the great things that was done among the Gentiles. Now they're talking about the Yehudis, totally different, children of Israel, who are zealous of the law. Go ahead. And they are informed of you, that you teachest all the Yehudis, which are among the Gentiles, to forsake Moshe. Right. The Caucasians were not given the law. They were not given these things to do, but the children of Israel were. So his question wasn't about what you're teaching the Gentiles. The question is, what are you teaching the Jews that are among them Gentiles? So why you teaching them Jews or them Gentiles that they don't have to do this, this, and this? Are you telling the Jews they don't have to do that too? And see, today we have absolutely no differentiation between those two things. There's no difference in between them whatsoever. In
the churches where you find white and black people, they never say, all right, this for you. All right, now y'all need to make sure y'all do this. Never. Go ahead.
Saying that they ought not to circumcise their children, neither to walk after the customs. What is it therefore? The multitude must needs come together, for they will hear that you are come. Do therefore this that we say to you. We have 4 men which have a vow on them. Them take and purify yourself with them, and be at charges with them, that they may shave their heads, and all may know that those things whereof they were informed concerning you are nothing, but that you yourself also walk orderly and keep the law.
Right. Show these people that you keep the law. Show these people that you are not teaching the children of Israel that the law is nailed to the cross. Because if anybody would have known that, it would have been him, since he was the one authorized to teach the Euro-Gentiles. If there was a law nailed to the cross, he would have known it. So if he's not teaching it, you have to ask yourself, where did that doctrine come from? He's authorized teacher of the Euro-Gentiles, yet the Euro-Gentiles are in charge of seminary schools who are out here teaching that the law is nailed to the cross. Where they get it from? Because their teacher didn't think it was. Go ahead.
Verse 25. As touching the Gentiles which believe, we have written and concluded that they observe no such thing, save only that they keep themselves from things offered to idols, and from blood, and from strangled, and from fornication.
But you know how you can muddy the waters? When you turn around and tell black people that they Gentile. So rather than even changing the doctrine, let's just leave the doctrine the way it is. But let's just tell the black people that they Gentiles too. Now you completely flip the script without changing anything that's written. Go ahead.
Then Saul took the men, and the next day purifying himself with them, entered into the temple, to signify the accomplishment of the days of purification, until that an offering should be offered for every one of them.
All right, so now let's go back to Leviticus chapter 12, so we can then get the understanding of those things. Now, what we just read in Acts chapter 21, do understand that Acts is the first 30 years of the church. This is after the birth, death, and resurrection of Christ, and he's still doing those things when it comes to the children of Israel. Not the Euro-Gentiles. So this is how slick the adversary, the devil, can be. Tell these people that they're Gentiles, then they'll just float about, separating themselves from Yahweh, having no idea that that's what they're doing. Leviticus chapter 12, and let's start that at verse 1.
And Yahweh spake unto Moshe, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If a woman have conceived seed, and born a man-child, then shall she be unclean 7 days. According to the days of the separation of her infirmity shall she be unclean. And in the 8th day the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised.
Now, unclean 7 days, then this opening is there for the circumcision to be done. So that now no one else is unclean who's dealing with her. Go ahead.
And she shall then continue in the blood of her purifying 30 days. She shall touch no hallowed thing, nor come into the sanctuary until the days of her purifying be fulfilled.
So now we got the purification part is not the same as being completely separated, being unclean. She's unclean in verse 2, unclean 7 days. Then the 8th day, the flesh of the foreskin is to be circumcised. Then verse 4, and she shall then continue in the blood of her purifying 30 days. She shall touch no hallowed thing, nor come into the sanctuary until the days of her purifying be fulfilled. We know that this is not being done in today's churches. This is what the Messiah went through. We just read the Messiah went through this very same thing. They call themselves christening children, and sometimes they within that same time, and the mama standing right up there on the altar and everything. That's something wrong. Go ahead.
But if she bear a maid child, then shall she be unclean 2 weeks, as in her separation, and she shall continue in the blood of her purifying 66 days.
Once again, there's still a separation, but it's double. If she bear a maid child, which is a female, she shall be unclean 2 weeks. There is no circumcision that needs to be done. Then she continues in the blood of her purifying 66 days. So now you got 40 days versus 80 days. It's double for a female than it is for a male. Go ahead.
And when the days of her purifying are fulfilled, for a son or for a daughter, she shall bring a lamb of the first year for a burnt offering, and a young pigeon or a turtle dove for a sin offering, unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, unto the priest, who shall offer it before Yahweh and make an atonement for her. And she shall be cleansed from the issue of her blood. This is the law for her that has borne a male or a female.
So you see the time she can bring these things when the time of her purification is over. Then the priest will make this offering to make an atonement for her, and she shall be cleansed from the issue of her blood. Go ahead.
And if she be not able to bring a lamb, then she shall bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, the one for a burnt offering and the other for a sin offering. And the priest shall make an atonement for her, and she shall be clean.
Right. It is the atonement that puts you back in that rightful place. Let's go to Leviticus chapter 15.
Leviticus chapter 15 and verse 1. And Yahweh spake unto Moshe and to Aaron, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When any man has a running issue out of his flesh, because of his issue he is unclean. And this shall be his uncleanness in his issue, whether his flesh run with his issue, or his flesh be stopped from his issue, it is his uncleanness. Every bed wherein he lies that has the issue is unclean, and everything wherein he sits shall be unclean. And whosoever touches his bed shall wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the even. And he that sits on anything whereon he sat that has the issue shall wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the even. And he that touches the flesh of him that has the issue shall wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the even.
Right. So what you're going to find is whether it's male or female, if that issue is still coming out of him or her, they are still unclean within that time. Go ahead.
And if he that has the issue spit up on him that is clean, then he shall wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the even. And what saddle soever he rides upon that has the issue shall be unclean. And whosoever touches anything that was under him shall be unclean until the even. And he that bears any of those things shall wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the even. And whomsoever he touches that has the issue, and has not rinsed his hands in water, he shall wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the even. And the vessel of the earth that he touches, which has the issue, shall be broken, and every vessel of wood shall be rinsed in water.
Now, we know that the Old Covenant law was a lot stricter than what Yahshua brought forth, and we're going to go through that, because what we keep is the righteousness of the law, not the letter of the law. But the whole premise of these things are still intact, and you have to be careful, because you can back up into some things and put yourself deeper into Old Covenant law. Just like we go in the New Testament, and the Gentiles were not given circumcision. He says circumcision verily profiteth if you keep the law. They weren't given circumcision, but they get themselves circumcised while then saying that the law is nailed to the cross. So you wasn't given circumcision, but you got a circumcision, which made you have to deal with the law, but you wasn't given the law. So you tripped your own self up. See, not understanding those things, people are doing that to their children, not understanding what they're doing. Go ahead.
Verse 13. And when he that has an issue is cleansed of his issue, then he shall number to himself 7 days for his cleansing, and wash his clothes, and bathe his flesh in running water, and shall be clean. And on the 8th day he shall take to him 2 turtle doves, or 2 young pigeons, and come before Yahweh unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and give them unto the priest. And the priest shall offer them, the one for a sin offering, and the other for a burnt offering. And the priest shall make an atonement for him before Yahweh for his issue. And if any man's seed of copulation go out from him, then he shall wash all his flesh in water, and be unclean until the even. And every garment and every skin whereon is the seed of copulation shall be washed with water, and be unclean until the even. The woman also with whom man shall lie with seed of copulation, they shall both bathe themselves in water, and be unclean until the even.
So when you consider what that is, the seed of copulation is a instrument of reproduction. So with that instrument of reproduction, this is the item that makes that encounter between a man and a woman unclean. It is nothing from the woman within that union that causes uncleanness. It is the part of the man that causes uncleanness in that instance. And you're going to find that it's the same way when you keep reading what thus says Yahweh, even dealing with the woman. So that part that precedes that issue that comes out of the male makes that part of it unclean. Keep reading from verse 19 to 33.
And if a woman have an issue, and her issue in her flesh be blood, she shall be put apart 7 days. And whosoever touches her shall be unclean until the even.
Right, because her issue proceeds longer than his. Go ahead.
And everything that she lies upon in her separation shall be unclean. Everything also that she sits upon shall be unclean. And whosoever touches her bed shall wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the even. And whosoever touches anything that she sat upon shall wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the even.
Now, you have to understand how they're having to deal with these things in this time. Even when you hear certain terms, basically what they would have to use during the time of a woman's cycle, they would use other parts, like let's say they made a garment. The part that's left over would be the part that the woman used when she's on her cycle. Those are leftover articles that, you know, how you get the term, you know, this person is either on their rag or something. Where they get that from? The rags that were left over from making it. You don't just throw that stuff away. You might be left after making this. You got other parts of cloth that's left. That's the stuff you're going to use. You're not going to do anything with those little pieces of cloth. So you use them for that, and then you throw it away. And we going to read that. Go ahead.
And if it be on her bed, or on anything whereon she sits, when he touches it, he shall be unclean until the even.
Right, because you're dealing with this piece of cloth. If that piece of cloth then leaks, now there's an issue. Now, and what are we dealing with? The same thing that we're talking about with the man, the seed of copulation. We're then talking about the discharging of an egg. Those are deceased instruments of reproduction. It is the seed that fertilizes the egg. When that egg is not fertilized, it then falls from the woman. That is now a dead egg. So she is passing a deceased instrument of reproduction. She is set apart while she is passing that deceased instrument of reproduction. It is no different than he is unclean while he has passed the deceased instrument of reproduction. It's just that it takes longer for the woman to pass hers. Yet you got women pastors that be behind the altar every week. When Yahweh come and deal with them folk, they gonna think it's unfair. All the blasphemy they have taken part in. Go ahead.
You know, even in the situation on whatever she sits upon, we see that that thing was so serious that Rebecca was able to use it to get Laban not to check her when she took his idol.
Right. She hid the idols up under her. When he went to looking for him, she said, "Forgive me, for the custom of women is upon me." He was like, "All right, done deal, done deal, done deal. There, done deal. We ain't looking under there. We not looking under there." And he kept on going. Go ahead.
Verse 24. And if any man lie with her at all, and her flowers be upon him, he shall be unclean 7 days, and all the bed whereon he lies shall be unclean.
So, with using these other parts of cloth that may leak from time to time, now you put the man in jeopardy that he is now unclean 7 days with the woman. See, this is why people don't understand today the benefits of things that they have. Like my teacher used to say, "Hey man, them things got wings now." They can hold in a lot of stuff. See, when you had to use a cloth and that stuff leak, now the man unclean if he come near that. Go ahead.
And if a woman have an issue of her blood many days out of the time of her separation, or if it run beyond the time of her separation, all the days of the issue of her uncleanness shall be as the days of her separation. She shall be unclean. Every bed whereon she lies all the days of her issue shall be unto her as the bed of her separation. And whatsoever she sits upon shall be unclean, as the uncleanness of her separation.
See, y'all don't remember back in the old days, folk had separate beds. See, it looked like even when you went in your grandmama room that it was one big bed until they took that sheet off and you look like, "Hey, wait a minute, them two beds put together." It was a division in between that bed. She had a bed and he had a bed. But you didn't see that unless you took that sheet off. It looked like it was a king size bed. But it was two beds put together. And when certain things happen, get on your side. See, we act like we don't remember none of that stuff. Go ahead.
Leviticus chapter 15 and verse 27. And whosoever touches those things shall be unclean, and shall wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the even. But if she be cleansed of her issue, then she shall number to herself 7 days, and after that she shall be clean. And on the 8th day she shall take unto her 2 turtle doves, or 2 young pigeons, and bring them unto the priest to the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And the priest shall offer the one for a sin offering, and the other for a burnt offering. And the priest shall make an atonement for her before Yahweh for the issue of her uncleanness. Thus shall you separate the children of Israel from their uncleanness, that they die not in their uncleanness.
That they die not in their uncleanness. Separate the children of Israel from their uncleanness. Remember, the tabernacle was amongst the children of Israel. See, you got natural uncleanness, then you got spiritual uncleanness. Yahweh said, "I'm going to have to move this tabernacle from among you so I don't have to kill you. Because you keep doing this stuff in the midst of my tabernacle, I'm going to have to do something to you." So move the tabernacle out there. When you want to come and deal with something with me, cleanse yourself, get yourself together, and then come see me. Go ahead.
When they defile my tabernacle that is among them. This is the law of him that has an issue, and of him whose seed goes from him, and is defiled therewith, and of her that is sick of her flowers, and of him that has an issue, of the man and of the woman, and of him that lies with her that is unclean.
And of him that lies with her that is unclean. Let's go to Mark chapter 5.
$10.50.
Mark chapter 5, and let's read verses 25 through 34.
Verse 25. And a certain woman which had an issue of blood 12 years, and had suffered many things of many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was nothing bettered, but rather grew worse, when she had heard of Yahshua, came in the press behind, and touched his garment. For she said, if I may but touch his clothes, I shall be whole.
This was a very daring thing. Do you understand what we just read, right? Anybody that touch this woman while she has all of these issues, then that person shall be unclean. So what she's doing in touching this man, understanding that she has had this infirmity of her blood for a very long time, this can be dangerous unto the woman. She don't know how he gonna take that. He might flip out on her. So there's a certain amount of faith that it took for her to even attempt this. Remember when you talk about who was that, Esther, that had to go in unto the king, and she wasn't called? It was a possibility if he didn't accept her going in without being called, that she could be killed. So a lot of times we read that and don't understand just how dangerous it is for the woman to go and touch this man with this, and everybody knows that she has undergone this thing. It says she has had this for many years. So understand that she can't come near. She hadn't came near. What's this? Verse 25. And a certain woman which had an issue of blood 12 years. She ain't came toward nothing holy for 12 years. Nowhere near the sanctuary. Nowhere near all these. And understand, Israel is all about the holy days. Israel is all about any of that. She couldn't deal with none of it for 12 years. And it didn't have nothing to do with her not wanting to do it. You think people don't notice they ain't seen you for 12 years? Look like you done did some time. Where you been? Where you been? Where you been in Sing Sing? Where you been, man? Go ahead, bro.
No, I just wanted to say, you know, we can also see in reading Leviticus 15 how, you know, Yahweh separated the Levites unto him to do work for him, as you can see where the turtle doves and the offerings had to be brought onto the tabernacle of the congregation. The priests would always have to be there. Imagine how many, you know, sisters would have to, you know, that situation when that comes up, they would have to bring, you know, the offerings onto the tabernacle.
Right.
So you can see how, you know, by reading that, how, you know, the Levites were separated for the use of Yahweh.
Right, and that's why, I mean, when we talk about it, there was a family that these things were handed down to those priests. It was a lot of things that were, you know, needing to be done. That's what the little house used to be at the church. When they used to have the little house, the pastor, if nobody else was available, he was always available for you to deal with. That don't have no more. The pastor house bigger than the church. He got armed guards at the gate. You can drive to the church faster than you get to his house. His driveway longer than the church. No, you ain't get. Somebody gonna be able to shot you by the time you get to that door. The pastors walk around with bodyguards. You see these big televangelists, man. They got these big gorilla-looking brothers walking in front and behind. Hey man, you got bodyguard? You got bodyguard, bro? They walk around with bodyguard. Try to get in them if you want to. They gonna show you. Watch this. Watch this. that was gonna happen. Get close to one of them. You gonna see? Go ahead, bro.
I was just gonna say, just to add to Brother Eliel, and that's why they had to be accessible, because there was nobody calling and saying, "Are you at the sanctuary?"
Right.
You gotta
wasn't
be
no
there.
cell phone. If they show up and wasn't nobody available, they ticked off. And then Yahweh end up accounting that unto us. See, Yahweh end up accounting that unto to the priesthood. So certain families had certain jobs among, you know, the priesthood. So the ones who dealt with the door, it was always somebody of their family at the door. The ones who dealt with the incense, it's always somebody of their family. They had the incense. The ones who dealt with this, it's always somebody of their family. And they had to keep those things going constantly. The children of Israel, our main focus was and always is supposed to be Yahweh first. Everything else falls second. But that's not how we deal with Yahweh. We deal with Yahweh with what we got left over. Leftover money, leftover time, leftover attention. Everything left over. Whatever we got left over, that's what we give to Yahweh. And then get mad if he won't accept it. Go ahead.
Mark chapter 5 and verse 29. And straightway the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of that plague.
She felt it immediately that it was dried up. Go ahead.
And Yahshua, immediately knowing in himself that virtue had gone out of him, turned him about in the press and said, Who touched my clothes?
Right. Go ahead.
And his disciples said unto him, You see the multitude thronging you, and you say, Who touched me?
Right. You got to understand how strange it is for somebody to walk through a crowd of people and everybody pushing on them and say, Who touched me? Everybody touched you. What kind of question is that? Yeah, but virtue didn't go out of me when everybody else touched me. Somebody touched me and virtue left me. No. Who was that? I've been pushed 50 times. I've been touched 75 times on my way walking. But virtue has not left me neither one of those times. Who just took some of my virtue? Go ahead.
And he looked around about to see her that had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what was done in her, came and fell down before him and told him all the truth.
Right. She feared. Hey, if that would have been one of them fleshly, by the law, Levites, remember when we read the thing about the Good Samaritan, the brother had been beaten and wounded and he was bloody. The priest and the Levite walked on the other side of the street. Oh my goodness, he bleeding. Go away from that, brother. Now, it's a total difference between the regular blood of a bleeding person. Look, all of these things as it is written, things covenants are sealed in blood. Things are purged with blood. This is a different kind of blood. Remember, the blood that a woman is passing is a unfertilized instrument of reproduction. That is death that is passing. That is completely different than the blood of the person who was beaten and wounded. So the Levites had a much less of a chance to be declared unclean by dealing with a man who had been beaten than they would a woman who was sick of her flowers being separated during her time of menstruation. So this is not the same kind of blood. So if you didn't get that, it was really twisted that the Levites walked on the other side of the street when the man was wounded. It's not the same kind. I remember in my beginning of the word, I used to think blood is blood. No, it's not. No, it's not. That is not the same. So there's a reason why this woman is trembling. Man, she like, I know he the Christ, but hey, he might flip out on me that I done touched him, and he know for him to turn around after 50 people done touched him, and he said, hey, which one of y'all touched me? Because I felt virtue go out of me. Man, she's scared. Sometimes, to get your healing, you might have to step out on some real unfamiliar and shaky ground. You might have to expose yourself in front of a whole lot of people. That's why we don't get the healing a lot of times that we're supposed to give, because we're still trying to hide our issues. She got to turn around and admit this in front of everybody. Who touched me? It's in a crowd of people. Go ahead.
And he said unto her, Daughter, your faith has made you whole. Go in peace and be whole of your plague.
Right. So he done brought it out just so he can talk to her in front of everybody. Who did it? I did it. Your faith has made you whole. because you even had enough faith to do this in front of all these people. Most people trying to look for a private moment. Can I talk to you for a second? Hey, psst, Yahshua. Psst, psst, Yahshua. Hey, come over here to me. Now look at me, man. I ain't got time for all that. Hey, go ahead and do what you got to do to me. If I got to die, I'm going to die right here. But I got a problem and I need to be healed. See, we won't put limitations on our healing. Heal me at 2:25 on Tuesday when nobody's there. No. I'm going to take my healing wherever it is you're going to get it to me. Wherever you're going to give me my healing at, that's who's going to see it. Well, so I can 5,000 people out here. Well, 5,000 people about to see me cry like a little girl with pink socks on. There it is. Little socks be crying like a little girl. That's all right. I got healed though. You go ahead with your man yourself in that lake of fire. Go right ahead. Brother, read Isaiah chapter 30. Isaiah 30 and verse 22.
You shall defile also the covering of your graven images of silver.
Look at what Yahweh saying. Now, your graven images of silver and all of these things, look at how he likens these things. Go ahead.
And the ornament of your molten images of gold.
So this is silver and gold, and y'all know we love silver and gold. All right. Now, but because you made graven images out of them, this is what they are likened unto.
You shall cast them away as a minstrel's cloth.
See, the minstrel's cloth is supposed to be thrown away. I mean, I don't think y'all keep the maxes. I don't think y'all keep those, do you? I don't think y'all hold on to those, huh? Well, once you turn around and make a graven image out of that silver and gold, guess what? That silver and gold ain't no good no more. But look at y'all, but I still want to keep the cross because, I mean, that's valuable gold. See, that I made the cross with, so why can't I just keep the cross? Did you keep your minstrel's cloth? Did you keep that? Well, put your cross right with your minstrel's cloth. There you go, they're the same. Go and put it with that. Go ahead.
You shall say unto it, get you hence.
You said, get out of here. This is what you're supposed to do unto the idols that are made with the silver and gold. But we want to melt the gold down. Maybe we can melt the gold down. I can melt down the graven image and I can make something else with it. Right? Did you melt down your minstrel's cloth and make something else out of it? Okay. Let's go to Lamentations chapter 1 and verse 17. I remember I wanted to keep my cross. I remember that. I mean, hey, look, I ain't telling y'all something I seen on TV. I did the same thing. I want to keep my look. Hey, man, that thing was shining. Had a nice little gold rope. You know, hey, that's when the brother think he living, boy, when he give him a nice little gold. Boy, I had me a good gold chain, boy, with the cross. Boy, stop. When I got to a certain point, you know, I kissed that thing. All right, I'm about to go do something. I need your protection. Kiss that cross. And then go do some hellacious deeds, baby. Yeah. I wanted to keep that cross. Lamentations chapter 1. And let's read verse 17.
Zion spread forth her hands, and there is none to comfort her. Yahweh has commanded concerning Yaakov that his adversaries should be round about him. Jerusalem is as a menstruous woman among them. Right.
So now here comes this judgment. Zion spread forth her hand and there is none to comfort her. Because now she done got to this point where Yahweh is dealing with her and none other nations help her. If Jerusalem is as a menstruous woman among her, they done separated themselves from among her. Let's go to Ezekiel chapter 18 and read verse 6. See, these are things that the church make you think that you doing some kind of wrong stuff in. Because see, people thinking about their convenience. See, you got a house and they got 2 or 3 girls in it. They worry like, well, when I'm gonna get to go to church then? Well, I need to go I need to go to Christian church, but they just let me go any old kind of way. That's what helps them go. You know, do what they do. But hey, what sinful place you ever been where they told you you can't come in? The sinful places, the door's always open. Oh, you want to come do Hellacious deed? Well, come on in. Come on in. The door's open. Matter of fact, ladies free before 12. Go ahead.
You want to start that at 5?
Go ahead.
Verse 5. But if a man be just and do that which is lawful and right, and has not eaten upon the mountains, neither has lifted up his eyes to the idols of the house of Israel, neither has defiled his neighbor's wife, neither has come near to a menstruous woman.
Neither has come near to a menstruous woman. That's held at the same part of the lifting up his eyes to the idols of the house of Israel. But that ain't how we taught that. See? Let's go to Exodus chapter 30. See, that's the first thing. What I like to explain to people is that a woman has a Sabbath built inside of her. She's got 7 days of rest built inside of her. But coming out of the Christian church, that's the first thing that upset people.
What? You can't come to, oh my goodness, I ain't never heard of no church like that. What kind of church that is? I ain't never heard of that in my whole life. I've been living 45 years, I ain't never heard of that. Where you get that mess from?
Out the book.
Well, they don't read the book while I go to church.
I know. Exodus chapter 30 and verses 17 through 21.
And Yahweh spake unto Moshe, saying, You shall also make a laver of brass, and his foot also of brass, to wash withal. And you shall put it between the tabernacle of the congregation and the altar, and you shall put water therein. For Aaron and his sons shall wash their hands and their feet thereat. When they go into the tabernacle of the congregation, they shall wash with water, that they die not. Or when they come near to the altar to minister, to burn offering made by fire unto Yahweh.
Now, when you consider verse 19, for Aaron and his sons shall wash their hands and their feet thereat. Consider the question that was asked to Messiah when he was talking about, why do your disciples eat with unwashed hands? Now, they weren't about eating. When it comes down to the things of holiness, it says they're supposed to wash their hands and their feet before they enter in. They're worried about washing their hands when they eat instead of washing their hands and their feet when they go to do holy work. See, the adversary like to turn everything upside down. Keep going.
So they shall wash their hands and their feet, that they die not. And it shall be a statute forever to them, even to him and to his seed throughout their generations.
Now, consider, if you don't take any of that into consideration and you got this holy setup of things in the kingdom, and you see this big basin with water, and you just walk right past it because you don't know nothing about that, and you walk right into that holy place and go in there and die. All because you ain't wash your hands and your feet at that big basin sitting there. You're like, hey man, what that water there for? But see, understanding what thus says Yahweh and what's written in here. Understand that the average Joe will see that stuff and keep walking. Then people will be sitting there talking about why my loved one dead. But let's go to John chapter 13. People say, what? So you bringing up that old mess. That old mess ain't got nothing to do with nothing. God is a loving God. He just loves so much. He don't even worry about that old mess. Can't believe that old priest or pastor, whatever he is. All right. Yeah, I be hearing some of the stuff that people say about me. It tickleth me. John chapter 13. And let's read verses 3 through 20.
Verse 3. Yahshua, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he is come from Elohim, and when Elohim, he rise.
What it is I'm doing. See, this is our problem. We don't sit still long enough to get an understanding of why certain things are done. We just go along with our feelings. Oh, I don't like this. I don't like that. Yet we'll go in some of these folk job and we won't go in there and tell them what we don't like about their job. We don't go in there and tell them what we don't approve. Ritual of the fountain of this word. When y'all start doing that? Then you got Christians showing ears. One man out of this.